Most people spend their entire lives trying to build the right network, the right connections, the right alliances. They believe that strength lives in numbers, that power is something you borrow from the people around you, that winning requires a team behind you. And Sun Tzu watched this. He studied it. He understood something about human nature that most people never discover, not in a lifetime of trying. The person who needs others to fight is already fighting at a disadvantage, because anything you depend on can be taken from you, and the moment it is, you have nothing left. Sun Tzu did not teach weakness. He taught the most dangerous kind of strength, the kind that lives entirely within you. And in this video, you are going to understand something that will permanently change how you see power, conflict, and yourself. Because fighting alone is not a disadvantage. It is the ultimate weapon. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly why the lone player is the one no enemy can ever truly prepare for. There is a pattern Sun Tzu recognized in every battle he studied, every general he observed, every army he analyzed. The commanders who lost were almost always the ones who were strongest on paper, the most alliances, the most soldiers, the most resources. And yet they fell, not because their strength failed them, but because their strength was never truly theirs. It belonged to agreements, to loyalty that could shift, to people who had their own interests, their own fears, their own breaking points. Sun Tzu understood that any power rooted in another person is already half surrendered. The moment you need someone else to execute your will, you have already handed them a piece of your control. And in war, whether on the battlefield, in the boardroom, or in the silent competitions of everyday life, control is everything. Think about what this looks like in the modern world. A man builds his career on his boss's approval. He performs well, rises quickly, earns trust. And then one day the boss leaves, the company restructures, the alliance shifts, and suddenly everything he built collapses overnight. Not because he was weak, but because his foundation was borrowed. A woman builds her social world around a tight circle of friends. She feels safe, powerful, seen. And then one conflict, one misunderstanding, one person who chooses a side, and the entire structure turns against her. Not because she was naive, but because she had placed her security inside other people, and other people are never fully yours to keep. Sun Tzu would look at both of these people and say the same thing. They were never truly fighting their own war. They were fighting someone else's, and wondering why they kept losing ground. This is the first principle. Dependence is not safety. It is a leash you choose to wear. And the strategist who recognizes this early enough has already won half the battle before it begins. But understanding this is only the beginning. Because there is something even more powerful that emerges when a person finally decides to operate alone, and most people never get close enough to feel it. When Sun Tzu wrote about terrain, he described something he called dead ground, a position so exposed, so dangerous, so stripped of retreat, that the soldier standing in it has only one option: fight with everything he has. No backup, no escape route, no one coming to save him. And Sun Tzu made a startling observation. Soldiers placed on dead ground fought harder than any other. They were more focused, more lethal, more willing to do what was necessary, because they had nothing left to lose except the battle itself. The isolation did not break them. It forged them. It removed every distraction, every hesitation, every hope of rescue that would have made them hold back. And in that stripping away, something emerged that could not have been built any other way: absolute commitment. Sun Tzu believed that this state was not something to be feared. It was something to be engineered. The strategist who learns to place himself on dead ground voluntarily, who chooses the exposed position not out of desperation but out of deliberate calculation, gains access to a level of focus and ferocity that no comfortable, well-supported opponent can match. This is the second principle. Isolation does not weaken you. It concentrates you. It takes everything scattered across your dependencies and compresses it into a single, undivided force. The person who has learned to fight alone has already undergone a transformation that their opponents cannot see, cannot measure, and cannot counter. But here is where Sun Tzu's teaching becomes truly unsettling, because the danger of the lone player does not stop at focus or commitment. It goes deeper, much deeper. Sun Tzu placed invisibility above almost every other strategic virtue. He wrote that the supreme art of war was to subdue the enemy without fighting. And one of the most powerful ways to do that was to be unreadable, to have no pattern, no predictable behavior, no structure that the enemy could map, analyze, and counter. And here is what most people never realize. Every alliance you form is a data point your enemy can use against you. Every relationship you depend on reveals something about what you value, what you fear losing, what you can be threatened through. Your friends reveal your loyalty. Your business partners reveal your ambitions. Your inner circle reveals your vulnerabilities. The person who watches you carefully enough does not need to attack you directly. They simply apply pressure to the right relationship, and you collapse from the inside. Sun Tzu saw this happen again and again. Generals brought down not by superior armies, but by the manipulation of a single trusted advisor. Kings destroyed not by foreign enemies, but by the alliances that were supposed to protect them. The lone player removes this entire architecture of vulnerability. When there is no inner circle, there is nothing to infiltrate. When there are no dependencies, there are no pressure points. When there are no predictable alliances, there are no patterns to read. The enemy looks for the map and finds nothing. They search for the weak point and discover the target has no fixed form. Sun Tzu described this as the highest form of military positioning. To be formless. To be like water, which has no permanent shape and cannot be attacked at its nature, only redirected. And the person who operates alone has achieved something close to this, not because they are antisocial or afraid of connection, but because they have chosen strategic invisibility over the comfort of being known. They have traded predictability for power. But Sun Tzu warned about something even more dangerous than being predictable, and that is the moment you believe your alliances are loyal when they are merely convenient. This is where most people make a fatal mistake. They confuse proximity for loyalty. They mistake shared interest for shared values. They believe that because someone has fought beside them, that person will always fight beside them. And Sun Tzu's entire body of work is, in many ways, a warning against exactly this assumption. He had seen the most powerful armies in China fracture not in battle, but in camp. Not under enemy fire, but under the weight of internal politics, personal ambition, and the simple reality that most alliances exist only as long as they serve both parties equally. Think about this in the context of modern professional life. Two colleagues build a partnership. They cover for each other, support each other's ideas, create the appearance of an unbreakable team. And then one promotion becomes available. Suddenly the dynamic shifts. Suddenly every favor extended becomes a debt being calculated. Every shared secret becomes a potential weapon. Every moment of vulnerability becomes leverage. This is not cynicism. This is pattern recognition. Sun Tzu was not a pessimist. He was a realist. He understood that human nature operates on self-interest first and everything else second. And the strategist who builds their power on other people's self-interest is building on sand. The moment the interest shifts, the foundation moves with it. The lone player does not experience this betrayal, not because they are beyond being hurt, but because they never place their structural power inside another person's hands. This is the fourth principle. Every alliance is a negotiation in disguise, and the moment you forget that, your ally becomes your liability. But there is one more layer to this teaching, and it is the one that separates the student of strategy from the master. Because everything discussed so far might sound like a philosophy of isolation, of cold distance, of choosing to live without trust or connection. And Sun Tzu would reject that interpretation entirely, because the goal was never isolation for its own sake. The goal was sovereignty. The warrior who fights alone is not the warrior who rejects all connection. He is the warrior who has earned the ability to choose his connections freely, without desperation, without need, without the invisible chains that come from depending on someone's goodwill to survive. Sun Tzu understood that the most dangerous player in any room was not the one with the most allies. It was the one who could walk away from every alliance at any moment and still be standing. That freedom, that absolute internal sufficiency, is what made a commander truly feared. Because you cannot threaten a man who needs nothing from you. You cannot manipulate someone who has already decided they will be fine alone. You cannot destabilize a person whose foundation is entirely internal. This is what Sun Tzu called self-mastery. The discipline of becoming your own ground, of carrying your power inside yourself so completely that no external change can subtract from it. And this is the transformation that the lone player undergoes. Not the loss of connection, but the loss of dependency. Not the rejection of loyalty, but the refusal to require it. The warrior who reaches this state does not walk through life in isolation. He walks through life in complete freedom. And freedom, Sun Tzu knew, was the foundation of all genuine power. There is a moment that arrives for certain people, a moment that most never recognize for what it is. A job ends, a relationship falls apart, a circle of trust dissolves. And in that moment, the average person experiences panic, grief, a desperate scramble to rebuild what was lost, to replace the structure, to find new people to depend on as quickly as possible. But occasionally, someone does something different. They stop. They stay in that exposed position. They resist the urge to rebuild their comfort and instead ask a harder question. What can I do with nothing? What do I actually have when everything external is removed? And in that silence, something extraordinary happens. They discover that the floor did not disappear. They are still standing. And not only that, they are standing more clearly, more cleanly, more powerfully than they ever did when the scaffolding of dependency was surrounding them. Sun Tzu would recognize this person immediately. This is the warrior who has finally found dead ground and understood it for what it is. Not an ending, but an awakening. The lone player is dangerous not because they have no weaknesses, but because their weaknesses cannot be found from the outside. Not because they feel no pain, but because their pain does not create openings. Not because they have no desires, but because no one else controls access to what they want. They move through conflict like water moves through rock, not by force, but by patience, by formlessness, by the quiet and absolute certainty that they do not need to win today in order to win eventually. This is the final teaching. The most dangerous player in any game is not the one with the most resources. It is the one who has internalized the game completely, who has become so self-sufficient, so strategically sovereign, so entirely their own ground, that every opponent who approaches them is already operating at a disadvantage, because they are trying to find a pressure point in someone who has already made peace with having none. Sun Tzu spent his life studying what makes men break and what makes them endure. And at the center of every enduring warrior he ever observed was the same quiet truth. They did not need anyone to survive. They had chosen connection. They had chosen alliance. They had chosen loyalty, but they had never needed it. And that distinction between choosing and needing is the difference between a player and a pawn, between a strategist and a soldier, between power and the performance of it. This is what it means to fight alone, not the loneliness of the abandoned, the sovereignty of the self-determined, the silence of someone who has nothing to prove, nothing to lose, and nothing that can be taken away, because nothing they value was ever placed in someone else's hands. If this video opened something in you, if it named something you have been feeling but could not yet articulate, Then do something with that. Like this video so it reaches the people who need this perspective, not reassurance. Share it with someone who is in the middle of rebuilding, after a collapse and doesn't yet understand that the collapse was a gift. Subscribe to this channel because what comes next goes even deeper into power, psychology, and the quiet war that every aware person is already fighting. Leave a comment and tell me, what is the one alliance you have been holding on to that you already know is built on sand? Say it out loud. Sometimes naming it is the first act of strategy. You already know who you are. Now it's time to fight like it.